Hi everyone, Ash here. I have a very special guest. His name is Ross Harding, and he's just recently moved from South Africa to the UK. I'm sure it's a big culture shock for him. Hi Ross, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Okay, thank you. It's so great to speak to another South African.
Yeah, I heard that I was actually expecting a different accent, and it was nice to get the South African on the other side of the line.
Oh no, we unique, aren't we?
I think so.
I
I
think
think
we
so.
I don't want to disappoint listeners, but I think we're taking over the world slowly. We're all over the world.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Ross, can you tell us how you started in your music career?
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, I'd really be going back like 20 years, more or less to the time that I figured out that I was obsessed with music and rock and roll music and the guitar. I think that was the when I was about 11 or 12, I started playing the guitar, and I think I pretty much knew that that was what I wanted to do from then.
Right.
Um, even all through school, and it was never like, I'll maybe pursue this music thing and maybe I'll study to be a doctor, just in case it kind of fails. It was
Right.
it was always music for me. And as soon as I left school and got into university, I joined a couple of bands and started doing it more as like a hobby until I eventually figured out how to do it as a career, and I've been a career musician for about a decade already.
Wow. Time flies,
Mhm.
doesn't it?
Yeah, it really flies. It really
And
flies.
for someone or people who haven't heard your music,
Mhm.
how would you describe your music to someone who has never heard it before?
My music is heavy rock music with a blues influence, a
Right.
very deep blues influence. I would say that's one side of the spectrum. But in recent years, it's incorporated a lot of acoustic and more stripped back elements as well, more atmospheric. So I think at its essence, it's basically a rock and roll musician playing blues. Um, it takes on a slightly different and darker approach than the traditional blues cats and maybe even the traditional kind of rock and roll cats would do.
Right.
Um, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's experimental, but it's definitely atmospheric and it's definitely emotive.
Okay. That sounds very interesting. It's a mixture of both rock and blues.
Hmm.
And I believe, well, what I saw of your EPK that
Yep.
you from Kempton Park.
No, not quite. I actually grew up in Boksburg in the East Rand,
Okay,
so not
Boxburg, right?
yeah, so not far from. That's kind of close to where the Johannesburg airport is.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to live when I was a kid in Benoni,
Yeah.
the
That
old
was kind
Benoni
of our
crowd.
stomping ground all through school, and the first like serious band that I joined, we rehearsed in Benoni, and I think yeah, three of the five members were from Benoni.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you see, we're worldwide, aren't we?
small world, yeah, small world, yeah,
Very
definitely.
small world. And what's been the most memorable performance of your career and why?
Oh, that's such a difficult question to answer because I think lots of shows and musicians actually get asked these kinds of questions a lot,
Yes,
and I think it also changes depending on the headspace that one is in.
right.
But I mean, just something that comes to mind is the last performance that I did before I left for the UK. Probably just because of how potent it felt, right? It
Okay.
was at Bailey's in Bedfordview. It was the last show before um, the family and I got on an airplane and immigrated to the UK. So obviously it has a level of poignancy and just something intense about it. The sound was awesome. The
Oh,
crowd was
wonderful.
amazing, and the band just sounded fantastic. So there's something to that. I think that, like I said, just had a potency about it.
Something that you'll never forget in your life.
I'll never forget it. Absolutely.
Oh, that's like really could say a good sending off.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And you know, if I mean, just recently, I've been busy with a lot of press and PR leading up to the single um, that's coming out next on Friday,
Okay.
and I've been doing a lot of written interviews, and one of the questions that came up was just a memorable experience, right,
Yeah.
from shows, and you'd think that like these big, you know, I played to 5,000 people and the big audience, and those are amazing, and they definitely hit home. But I think there's something about um, the other side of the coin that also sticks. Like, for example, the story that I told was I was once really sick. In the middle of winter, I had the flu, and we had this gig booked in Pretoria
Right.
at like a festival, but it was outdoor in the middle of winter.
Oh,
And the guys came to, in fact, this band that I was in Benoni, it was actually with those cats. And
okay.
the guys came to pick me up in the van. And I was like huddled up in the side of the van with Panado and like a cup
Oh,
of coffee. And I was just feeling so terrible.
mm.
And we get to this gig and there's like nobody there. No one is
Oh,
at this
God,
gig. So
no.
I'm like, you guys schlepped me out. And obviously we had quite a staunch, um, like we were quite strict on whether or not we were going to go and perform, you know,
Right.
because it's like, do we just stay at home, you know, and just call it a day? Or is there something like bigger at play, you know, you know, and it sort of gives an insight into the reason why we do this and why we love music, you know, because if it was just a case of, oh well, you know, I'm not really feeling up to it, so like who cares? We're just not
Yeah.
going to go. Then it may have just spoken to the passion and the you know, or the lack of passion rather, and the carelessness that we had about our craft. But you know, we still went, we still rocked up, we still managed to get to this gig, and although there was nobody there, by the time I got off the stage, I felt like a million times better, probably just from a bit of adrenaline,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like copious amounts of coffee and Panado. And at the time, I was still drinking, so at the time I was probably a Jack Daniels up or whatever, you know, and
Yeah.
just feeling pretty loosey goosey. But that's always sort of stuck with me because I think those are really the moments that determine like whether or not you're gonna keep doing what you do as a musician, because it's hard,
Exactly.
you know, it's really hard, and it has times where it can really break you. Um, and if you can sort of stick through those and see the value in those times, then I reckon everything else is just like a bit of icing on the cake.
Right. No, I totally agree. You know, if you love what you do, you stick to it. And before you know it, you know, you'll have more listeners, more fans, more music, more
Mm,
albums, more
mm, mm,
singles,
mm.
etc. So
Absolutely.
hats off to you, my dear.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And talking about gigs and what have you, how
Mhm.
do you engage with your fans, both online and at live performances?
I'm very much an in-person type of guy. Um, I do like to give people kind of uh, real, let's call it that, you know,
Yeah,
face time, you know, in reality. I've always struggled a bit with the social media, although it is a necessary evil. Um, and I try to post frequently and keep people up to date. My social media is really a tool to stay in touch, you know, and let people
yeah,
know what's happening. But you know, I think where I tend to veer towards is the in-person relationships. You know, I love when people come up to me at shows, and you might not be able to say it outright, but I'm actually way more introverted than people might realize. And
right.
it's a skill that I've definitely had to learn over time because it can be a little bit overwhelming to talk to a lot of people, especially after shows when you're feeling a bit tired and you want to pack your gear and get out. But
Sure.
that's the most important time, I reckon, to just connect, you know, and just see what people are up to. Where did they come from? What brought you to the performance? Did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously give them the thanks for being there, because they could have chosen to be anywhere in the world on that particular day. And they spend some good money to come and watch your performance, or to be at the festival that you're at, etc. And I think that's really where it builds
yeah.
true connections with people.
That's so true. And since I know you've only just moved to the UK, but do you have any plans
Mm.
to do live gigs?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm starting. I'm starting to perform from April.
Okay,
I've got 3 performances with the blues master, Mr. Dan Petlansky
right.
from South Africa, who is he's become a friend of mine, and it's always a privilege and an honor to be able to perform with him. I called Dan up some weeks ago. He's going to be in the UK and Europe touring, and
Okay,
so I'm going to be doing some support slots with him
very
from
nice.
Newcastle, yeah, in Newcastle, Glasgow, and Brighton in April. And then I've got some dates pending for May and beyond, on my own, and possibly with a band, um,
Okay.
that I'll put up on socials as soon as those are all confirmed.
Oh, fantastic. I hope you're going to come to Kent to come and perform because I'd love to come
I've
and
actually
see you.
I've actually got I've got family who live in Kent.
Oh, really? Whereabouts in
Yeah, so
Kent?
Seven Oaks.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's more than likely that I'll be up there at some point.
Oh, fantastic. Well, just let me know when you do
I
because
will. I will.
I'll come and check out your music and your live
Awesome.
performances.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks.
Another question now. If you
hmm
could go back and give advice to your younger self just starting in music, what would it
hmm
be?
I think a big one is patience.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be a really big one. It's just understanding that things take time. I think we get so obsessed with these kind of overnight success stories,
Yeah,
and youngsters especially. This guy's 21 and he's a billionaire. Um, and I think the reason is because those are so far outside of the norm of the trajectory of a successful career, whether it's in music or business or whatever it is that you're doing. And if I could talk to myself as a 30-year-old talking to a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old,
yeah,
the conversation, the conversation would be um, really enlightening, in the sense that you are going to carve your own path. You are going to be
right.
doing what you set out to do. I mean, if I think about it from that perspective, so many of the goals that I set out for myself, I have been able to achieve, and I'm really grateful for that. But
Yeah,
it took a lot of time and it took a lot of hard work, and it hasn't always been the way that I thought it would go. Um, and yet those things have been accomplished. So I definitely think that being patient is key, and just being consistent, understanding that you have something that you want to attain and it's not going to come easy.
sure. No, I agree. When you first started performing, can you describe the first live performance you ever gave and how did it feel?
The first time I can remember performing in let's say, a formal capacity, because I think in school I probably did like a talent show or something like that.
Okay.
Um, in fact, I can actually remember doing that in primary school. So I was probably like 13, maybe
Wow.
12. But I don't know if that counts as like an actual performance. I just remember being on the stage and being super nervous. But when I was about 16, I was taking some guitar lessons, and the kind of music school that I was attending off, like kind of once a week after school, did a year end like a year end performance where a bunch of the musicians from the school had like little bands and performed a song, and there were rehearsals and the whole lot. And I think that was the first time that I realized, like I said, in a formal kind of capacity, like, okay,
Yeah,
I can do this. This is this isn't something that's difficult for me to do. I can
sure.
get up on the stage and kind of maneuver it. And when I started a band when I was in about grade 11 or matric, and I think we did like one show at a local pub, actually in
Yeah.
Benoni, the old Cool Runnings. Yeah,
Okay.
we did a performance there, and it was for a battle of the bands, and we didn't even have a bass player at that time, so it was just two guitarists and a drummer. But that was the first time I kind of booked a show,
Yeah.
like I kind of um went out of my way to like get hold of the venue and book something and actually go and, rehearse and rock up and perform the show.
Wow.
And that blew my mind. Um, I think I've been trying to just keep doing that ever since, really.
Wow. So, I mean, you've been at it since at an early age.
Yeah, I mean, if I think of, again, if I think about it retrospectively, I have, even though it wasn't always conscious, I have kind of been working at it basically since I was a teenager,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
different kind of in different ways. And I think that's something that's like sorely overlooked or maybe like misused
Yeah.
in musicians, is like the value of like just carving your own path, because there's so many ways to do this, and there's so many ways to make a living out of it and to build a successful career that isn't the quote unquote traditional, you got to have like a huge song, the hit of the summer or whatever. I mean,
Sure.
my music is never going to play on like big pop radio, it just isn't. And I'm so good with that, it's not designed for that.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. And it means that you have to find alternative ways, and um, that line of thinking, I reckon I've kind of developed without really realizing it, until this point where I'm obviously much more aware of what I'm doing.
Of
But
course.
it maybe stems all the way back from then.
Wow. I'm so impressed. It's unbelievable. Really. Um, the question I was going to ask you, how do you prepare for a live performance, both mentally and physically?
That's quite a long-winded answer. As you can hear, I'm not short of words.
Yeah.
I take the live performances really seriously. Maybe too seriously. Like I can be really hard on myself about the kind of level that I want the show to be at, and the standard.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I've got a pretty serious practice routine with guitar and with vocals, um, that I've kind of been doing for the last 3 or 4 years.
Uh-huh.
I was kind of doing something before that, but again, it wasn't all that conscious, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's something that I've kind of put into practice as a more definitive effort now. And the first thing is making sure that the set lists are determined beforehand. What are we going to perform, or what am I going to perform if I'm doing it as a solo artist?
Okay.
And obviously the rehearsals, etc., need to be sorted out. And overall, I got to be at the top of my game, which means that for me, I don't drink. I haven't. Actually, this month, I'm actually 4 years sober.
Oh,
So that's
congratulations.
thank you so much. That's been that was a huge game changer for me, just in terms of overall mental health and performance ability, etc.
Yeah.
Especially as a singer, that's really helped a lot. And and just trying to get into like a solid headspace for the performance. Not every. I always feel that every single show definitely has its own challenges and is different. You're never going to repeat the same kind of thing, but it's important to get into the frame of mind to be able to operate at a level that's at least good. Even if you're
Sure.
having a bad day, or like you've been on tour, or your voice is tired, or whatever the case is, so that you can at least be on your toes and adapt to the point that you're leaving the audience with something that's good,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
something that's not bad. Which is obviously, you're only as good as your last show. And it's important to just kind of prepare yourself to get to that point.
Oh, fantastic. Wow. I really, really enjoyed everything that you've been telling me. I'm just like in awe.
You know, thank you for saying that. I think that something that I've been contemplating for some time is the fact that because I have these kind of experiences relatively frequently. Again,
Right.
because I think that the beaten path, as far as music goes, is so treaded that it's almost impossible to walk on. And I know I've used a strange metaphor, but let me clarify that. If I had a rand for every time somebody said like, "This is what you need to do in your career,"
Yeah.
you need to go to America, okay,
Yeah.
and then what?
True. Yeah.
Okay, well, you need to go to the UK. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Then
And
what
then
then?
yeah, what do I do then?
Am I
That's
just going to sign a huge record deal? Is
yeah.
that, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Um, it can work like that with certain artists and certain musicians, etc. But there are so many ways to build a sustainable career and to
Yeah.
build something within the music realm that aren't really obvious, right? And of
Uh-huh.
course, they are individual as well. They're going to be everybody's life as an artist or just on a much more broad perspective is different. And that means that what I'm doing in my career versus what even a fellow bandmate is doing in theirs is going to be vastly different, right?
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
is synergy and there are lessons that we can learn from one another. And that's something that I've been contemplating very deeply over the last few years is trying to find perhaps a way to share that
Yeah.
with other artists. Of course, like I said, it is my opinion, and I don't think I'm some kind of authority on, how to progress in your music career. But I do think that I have something to share, especially with youngsters, about what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish and maybe getting grips with the realities of what that looks like and what it actually is that you're after.
Yeah.
Because the industry globally is so vast, it's not even fathomable to consider how big it is and exactly where it is that you can carve your own path.
Sure. Sure. Oh my gosh, I've just looked at the time and unfortunately we're going to be running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go, I'd just like to thank you for taking time out of your day to come and chat with us. I've
You're so
thoroughly
welcome.
enjoyed this.
You're so
Honestly,
welcome.
I've enjoyed talking to a fellow South African. It's like made my day.
You're so welcome. Thank you
Oh,
for having
thanks,
me.
Ross. And before we go, if you could just
Mm-hmm.
tell us where your future fans or people who'd love to follow you, where they can follow you on
Yeah.
social media and where to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
get your music.
Well, two things. I've got a new single coming out on the 15th of March. So
Okay.
that's this coming Friday. It's called 1,000 Snakes. And you can check that out as well as all my other social media and get in touch with me at rosshardingmusic.com. And that will
Fantastic.
give you the links that you need to find all of that. The single plus all my social media, contact details, etc. is all at rosshardingmusic.com.
Oh, you're an absolute superstar in my eyes, Ross.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you so
anyway,
much.
thank you so much again for taking time out of your day to come and chat to
So
us.
welcome. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll have, hopefully, we'll catch up soon and have the great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ross. See you
All right.
soon.
Take care.